What's up guys, Invisible Jiu-Jitsu here, we've got Rukush back again. We've been talking recently about naming things, naming techniques after people, and people talked about the Jacare choke. I'll put that in the corner. I call it the ninja choke, but certain people saw Jacare do it first. When I think of Jacare, I think of this. I think of the Jacare Wristlock. Okay, now, it's going to come from standing. There's a horrible video on YouTube. Just click Jacare Wristlock, you'll see the guy scream as his wrist breaks. Hopefully I'm not going to break Rukush today. He's going to grip, and he's going to take a bad grip. Okay, this grip's not the worst grip I've ever seen. It's up towards my collarbone. Okay, just go a little bit lower just for demonstration purposes. A little bit lower. Yeah, you see this all the time in competition. They'll take whatever grip they can get here instead of fighting to get up by my collarbone. Right? He tries to move me around from here. Very difficult to move me around. Go up high, now move me around. Big difference in the amount of control. Okay. Also for a wrist lock, as we're going to see later, this is much better because he's able to slip past my body. Okay, I'm not able to block his hand. But he grips lower here. What we're going to do is chop and catch. Okay, and there's a couple ways that we can chop. One, we can just do the Karate Kid or Judo chop, Austin Powers, whatever you want. The other is actually just to punch his wrist. Right, whichever you like. But what I want to do is I want to create a bend in his wrist. Okay. We're going to talk about principles of wrist locks in a second, but general principle is bend one end, pull the other. That's it. Okay, that's a wrist lock. So I get my bend and I bring my chest over. Okay. So once it's there, I lock his elbow to me. Try and straighten your wrist. Okay, difficult. Then my hand comes over the top. So all I'm doing is cupping my hand. He's got a bent wrist against my chest. And then I lean in and pull, okay? What I'm gonna do from here is pull in and then start opening his elbow to the outside, okay? What I want to do is I want to take his elbow in the same direction as his fingers or knuckles, okay? I don't just pull in, I then open as I lean forward, okay? If he doesn't tap here, and this is what Jacare did in the competition, he doesn't tap, I drop to my feet, and then I do the same thing, and the guy screamed as his wrist broke. So, basic wrist lock principle is very simple. All I need is, just let go. All I need is a bend in his wrist, or a bend in his wrist, whichever way you want to do. And you can actually do this the other way. Grip my feet now. You can actually do this the other way too. Okay? But I prefer this one because most people are less flexible in that direction than they are in that direction. Okay? All I need is a bend in the wrist and a force in the other direction. That's it. Okay? So blocking one end, force in the other direction. And we can do other wrist locks where it's the other way around. The block is the other end and the force is that end. Okay, so that's all we need. Bend in the wrist, block one end, apply force in the other. So in terms of this wrist lock, boom, once I've got my bend in the wrist, the block is now my body going over the top of it. Okay, if I stay here, he can force his hand back to the outside. Okay, so what I want, once I get my bend, is to turn my body and dip in. And now he can't force it back out. Once I get here, my head goes in, and I pull in, and I rotate out. Because I can only bend his wrist so much from this end. But by flaring the wrist, by flaring the elbow in the direction of the fingers, it's going to increase the angle of the wrist lock, okay, until it puts it on. This is particularly horrible if your fingers are straight, okay, and there's a wrist lock that I did to one of my students, and he didn't tap, and his fingers ended up here, and now he's got a sore wrist. It's his own fault, isn't it? Chop, catch, head goes in, look. Then I reinforce. In and out. If he doesn't tap here, I'm going to drop to my knees. And Jacare didn't do it like this. He dropped to his knees, fast. And as he came down, he followed. And then we go. So, the key here for me, the thing that a lot of people miss sometimes is the opening out of the elbow in the direction of the knuckles, direction of the fingers. Okay? So whichever way I have my wrist lock, I want to take my elbow in the direction that the fingers point. Okay? Whichever way my fingers point, that's the way I'm going to take that elbow. And it's true of that wrist lock and that wrist lock. Alright? So, let's just do one more angle. It comes in. All I'm going to do is chop and catch, like I'm trying an arm drag. And then my head goes in, and I catch over the top of my hand. From here, I pull in, it's already tight, and then the elbow goes in the direction of the fingers. If he doesn't tap, I drop and finish from there. Okay? So, wrist locks, cameraman. Wrist locks, much easier than they seem. All we need is a bend, a block, and a push, a force. Okay? So, bend, block is my body, force is coming from my hands in and then out. Okay? So, thank you very much to Master Jacare. Not the Master Jacare, there's two Jacares. Ronaldo Souza Jacare. Thank you very much for doing this in competition, opening the world of wrist locks to people. Fredson Paixão, another big guy, very, very famous for wrist locks, coming out of the Osvaldo Alves camp. I love wrist locks. I've got loads of videos to make on wrist locks, so if you want to see more videos on wrist locks, comment down below, tell me. Come back again, like more, like Lucas, like the gym.